they can't get the benefit, then people don't have the housing because they can't pay for it.
Tonight, reaction to an unexpected pause to a Manitoba housing benefit that will impact the province's most vulnerable.
We have heard from our citizens that, we are forging our own self-government path here.
A surprise announcement by the Métis Nation-Saskatchewan.
I do not see why, if we were able to come to an agreement with all of these provinces, it's not possible to find common ground with the Quebec government on the issue.
And the Government of Canada defends a decision to issue an emergency order to protect the Boreal Caribou in Quebec. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. A sudden pause to the Canada-Manitoba Housing Benefit is impacting some of the province's most vulnerable, including youth aging out of care and people at risk of homelessness. Reporter Sierra Benton speaks to advocates to learn more about the consequences.
Up to 400 people across Winnipeg are in limbo after a housing benefit was unexpectedly halted. In early August, the Manitoba government paused the youth and homelessness streams of the Canada-Manitoba Housing Benefit, or CMHB, which provides a rent top-up for low-income and at-risk populations. However, community organizations and participants say they were not informed of the pause until the end of August. Shauna McKinnon is a professor at the University of Winnipeg's Department of Urban and Inner City Studies and a member of the Right to Housing Coalition. She says applicants may have already applied for housing, thinking the benefit would help cover costs.
The assumption is that they're going to get the benefit. So they signed agreements and then they go and they apply for the supplement because they can't get the benefit until they actually have a signed agreement. So then there is no agreement. If they can't get the benefit, then people don't have the housing because they can't pay for it.
The two CMHB streams that were paused serve demographics that are disproportionately Indigenous. According to End Homelessness Winnipeg's 2022 street census, 68.2% of Winnipeg's homelessness population identified as Indigenous. And about 90% of children under CFS care in Manitoba are Indigenous. Mary Burton is the executive director of Zungizi Ode. The organization helps families and youth aging out of CFS care.
We work with a lot of youth who are aging out of care and a lot of youth who are transitioning from homelessness into their first apartments or their first place, whatever have you. And without that benefit, they're not going to be able to get a decent place to live.
In October, the organization plans to open a group of transitional housing units, but without the CMHB, Burton is worried.
Right now, we're working on a transitional house with Raising the Roof and Slow Mission. And the people that will be moving into that home are families that are reunifying with their children. Without that extra benefit, it's going to be hard to house people in our home.
Manitoba's NDP government vowed to end chronic homelessness in 2 terms. McKinnon argues that pausing the benefit is a step back. But while she believes the CMHB is a necessary measure, she said it's not a long-term solution to the housing crisis.
What we really need is a consistent supply of housing that rents at levels that are affordable to people, because that gives people more security, knowing that there's housing out there that they can afford.
APTN requested an interview with Housing, Addictions and Homelessness Minister Bernadette Smith. However, she was not made available. In a statement sent to APTN, the minister said the province is committed to ending chronic homelessness and blamed the previous government for not investing in long-term housing solutions. They are reviewing CMHB applications, determining the best course of action, and looking at a variety of solutions to prevent homelessness. Sierra Benton, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The Southern Chiefs organization is taking the province and Manitoba Hydro to court over Lake Winnipeg. On Thursday, the SCO filed a statement of claim seeking charter rights for Lake Winnipeg. The organization wants the lake, which serves many First Nations, to be declared a living entity. After decades of artificial control by hydro in the province, the SCO says Lake Winnipeg is now on life support. The result is declining wetlands, contaminated fish, and an influx of invasive species. They're demanding Manitoba Hydro conduct a proper environmental assessment of the lake, which the SCO claims they've never been required to do. At a Thursday morning press conference in Winnipeg, Grand Chief Jerry Daniels explained the importance of giving the lake charter rights.
You know, we have to think about ourselves in that lake, or as that lake is in ourselves. And we always hear statements about how we're composed of water, you know, that we're of the water in many ways. And we do come from that. And so in this instance, you know, that's the case. But we need to get to a point where the, you know, Lake Winnipeg is being respected and treated the way it should be.
The province and Manitoba Hydro told APTN they are aware of the statement of claim, but neither wish to comment further. The Métis Nation-Saskatchewan has announced it is withdrawing from the Métis National Council immediately. The announcement comes just days before the MNC was to hold its annual General Assembly and elect a new president. That vote and the AGA were previously postponed before MNS made its announcement today. For more on this, we're joined by Michelle Leclerc. She's the Vice President of Métis Nation-Saskatchewan. Vice President Leclerc, thanks so much for taking some time for us here today. Can you tell us why Métis Nation-Saskatchewan decided today to leave the Métis National Council?
Yeah, well, you know, this has sort of been in the works for a bit. We have heard from our citizens that, you know, we are forging our own self-government path here. We're, you know, near to the end of our negotiations of our treaty. And our treaty goes to our citizens in the next while, and so it was one of the things that we decided as our citizens had instructed us that we needed to be on our own path. And Saskatchewan is you know, a long, storied history of Métis people in this province, and so we decided that this was the path that we were going to take. As you probably know, Dennis, we left Bill C-53 some time ago, and we just felt that, you know, our concerns and growing concerns about the situation in Ontario, and, you know, that the Métis National Council wasn't really being a strong advocate in that place, and we felt that we could be, obviously, our own advocate, both nationally, provincially, and internationally.
Yeah, you know, concerns have been raised for years over the Métis Nation of Ontario registry and the inclusion of the 7 new historic, Métis communities. Was there something in particular that led to this final decision to pull out of MNC?
You know, I don't think that there was anything that was really sort of that turned the corner on it. Other than, I guess there was some issues around the MNC was postponing their annual general meeting. There was a number of issues that really we thought, you know, when we look at ourselves and the path that we're going on, is a strong path of self-government and self-determination, and our citizens and our council you know, believe that we advocate for ourselves in Saskatchewan and that we don't need the Métis National Council. We don't need, you know, to be involved in controversy that we don't own. And you know, there's potential for it to stand in the way of the rights and the wishes of our citizens.
It was just last year that the Métis National Council celebrated its 40th year. Now with the MMF, Manitoba Métis Federation, pulling out in 2021 and Métis Nation-Saskatchewan no longer part of it, what do you think that means for the future of the MNC?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think, you know, they're going to have to, the MNC is going to have to reflect on who they are, why they're here, and where they go, if anywhere, from today on. The Métis National Council is actually has 3 founding members. That's Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. And then, of course, Ontario and British Columbia are part of that board of governors. You really have to have 2 governing members to make quorum. And so they're left with 1, which will probably frustrate their bylaws, and they'll have to, sort of go from there. What does the Métis National Council look like, and do they really represent the interests and the voices of Métis people in the prairie provinces, specifically Manitoba and Saskatchewan?
I know this is about Métis Nation-Saskatchewan moving forward and speaking on behalf of their citizens, but given what you just said, is this also, do you think, the end of MNC?
I really don't want to speculate on that. Given some of the things that I said, they're really going to have to reflect on, and as I said, their bylaws will be frustrated, so they'll have to. There'll be a legal way of sort of trying to figure out how they change their bylaws, if in fact they will do that.
Vice President Leclerc, we'll have to leave it there, but appreciate you taking some time for us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Now, in a statement to APTN News, a spokesperson for the Métis National Council says, quote, "We respect the decision of the MNS." The statement says President Cassidy Caron will be meeting with the MNC's governing members to discuss next steps. Meanwhile, Manitoba Métis Federation President David Chartrand congratulated Métis Nation-Saskatchewan for, quote, "taking an important step forward in support of the integrity of Métis identity and our homeland." You can find much more on this story on our website, aptnnews.ca. On September 5th, a student at Evan Hardy Collegiate in Saskatoon poured a flammable substance on another student before lighting her on fire. A 14-year-old girl was charged with attempted murder, arson, and aggravated assault in connection with the incident, which happened in front of several witnesses. A teacher intervened to help the victim but was also injured. The 14-year-old has now been charged with unlawful bodily harm for allegedly injuring the teacher, and there is now a court-ordered publication ban in place to protect the name of the victim and the teacher. The accused cannot be named under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. Her next court appearance is set for September 26th. On Wednesday, the Canadian Medical Association apologized to Indigenous peoples. We'll bring you reaction to that apology after the break. Welcome back. A historic event took place in Victoria, BC, where the Canadian Medical Association formally apologized for the mistreatment of Indigenous peoples. APTN's Tina House was there and has this story.
Today, the national organization overseeing doctors in Canada is asking for forgiveness at a ceremony in downtown Victoria.
The racism and discrimination that Indigenous peoples and healthcare providers face is deplorable, and we are deeply ashamed. As the national voice of the medical profession, we are sorry for the actions and the inactions of physicians, residents, and medical students that have harmed Indigenous peoples.
Dr. Alika Fontaine is the former president of the Canadian Medical Association and says this day is an important first step.
After years of internal work, the CMA is sharing and owning its history. We recognize this apology may reopen wounds and re-traumatize First Nation, Inuit, and Métis individuals, families, and communities who have and continue to experience harms in Canada's healthcare system.
And according to this report called In Plain Sight, done in 2020 in BC, 84% of 9,000 Indigenous people and Indigenous healthcare workers say they experienced some type of racism and discrimination that prevented them from seeking necessary care, negatively affecting their health. These outcomes reinforce stereotypes and perpetuate the cycle of inequity. In 2022, the CMA brought on Indigenous elders, knowledge keepers, and experts to help the organization define an Indigenous health goal. This led to them reviewing its past and acknowledging the harms Indigenous people suffered, dating back to the establishment of residential schools and Indian hospitals.
The Indian hospital system embedded systemic racism and discrimination in the Canadian health system by fostering racial segregation and conditions where Indigenous patients received substandard and unsafe care. Patients were subjected to abuse, experimental treatments, and forced and coerced sterilization.
Dr. Nell Wyman says she is hopeful things will change, but there is a lot of work to do.
I'm more interested in hearing what's going to happen now, what's going to happen starting tomorrow. And I think a major driver of trying to make the healthcare system does not lie within the Indigenous physicians like myself within the system. We've been speaking up for years about how unsafe it is for patients and for ourselves, for Indigenous medical students, residents, and physicians. I think really the onus and accountability will lie with our non-Indigenous physician colleagues to take up that cause.
Tina House, APTN National News, Victoria.
Yukon government says it had to delay the opening of a managed alcohol program due to issues with the hiring process. The program, which helps provide care for those struggling with severe alcohol dependency, was slated to open in May, but the government said previously that the Yukon has high rates of alcohol consumption. The program is intended to provide withdrawal management, counseling, and health care to people struggling with severe dependency. Territory's Director of Mental Wellness and Substance Use Services says a new staffing model had to be created for the program, causing the delay.
It's all done to the point where we've been able to post the positions. We've hired a supervisor, and we just finished the hiring process. We're just in the process of sending out offers to the treatment support staff, which is the backbone of the program. So I don't want to say an exact date until I see those offers accepted, but in 2 weeks, we should be able to know that we can start really right away.
To Ottawa now, where Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault was before a parliamentary committee earlier this week, defending the government's decision to issue an emergency order to protect Boreal Caribou in Quebec. Canada has been waiting since 2016 for the Quebec government to put forward a plan to protect caribou in the province. The province had committed to having a plan in place by June 2023, but this did not happen, leading the federal government to issue an emergency order earlier this year. Guilbeault told the Environment and Sustainable Development Committee, despite the passage of time, Ottawa remains optimistic it can reach an agreement with Quebec.
And why am I saying that I'm optimistic that we'll find an agreement with Quebec? We were able to agree with Ontario on caribou. We were able to agree with Alberta on the caribou. We've been able to agree with British Columbia regarding the caribou. I do not see why, if we were able to come to an agreement with all of these provinces, it's not possible to find common ground with the Quebec government on the issue.
Time for one last quick break, but first, here's a preview from T.R. Wheatley about The Resilience, a husband and wife duo using hip-hop music to talk about residential schools.
For the fire keepers, water with the storytellers.
Making music that matters together.
My name is Lisa Muswagan. I am a Nakota Cree member of the Michigamak Cree Nation.
I'm Carmen Amiesa. They call me Hallenback. I'm from Sampson Cree Nation, Hobbema, Alberta, Musqueam, Alberta.
Known as The Resilience, they just dropped a single called Orange Shirt Day, just days before National Truth and Reconciliation Week.
When you guys hear it, you guys will understand it too, fully, you know. Orange Shirt Day is more than just, more than just one day in my mind, you know.
Every day.
It's every day, basically.
Every day is Orange Shirt Day. Shutting down every system they put in place.
Everything that they be getting like.
I think the time is now because of everything that's going on. You know, we got communities all over Canada right now doing searches.
Orange Shirt Day is available on all platforms starting September 19. Hear more about the song and how The Resilience is changing the way hip-hop is viewed one song at a time. Their story next week on APTN National News.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. This close encounter and a great picture sent in by Tom Levi of a moose poking its head out of the bush near Whitehorse, Yukon. If you have any pictures you want to featured here on APTN National News, email them to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, showers and 20 in Halifax, 22 in Fredericton, 16 in Kuujjuaq, cloudy and 7 in Nain. Sun's out and 27 in Montreal and Val-d'Or. 22 with showers in Sault Ste. Marie, a sunny high of 25 in North Bay. Rain and 24 in Thunder Bay, cloudy and 21 in Sioux Lookout. In northern Manitoba, showers and 18 for God's Lake, 16 with rain in Norway House. 21 and showers in Winnipeg, Gimli, and Dauphin. 18 in Regina, 14 with rain in Saskatoon. 16 and showers in Meadow Lake and Buffalo Narrows. In northern Alberta, showers and 15 in High Level, cloudy and 14 in Fort Chipewyan. 12 with rain in Edmonton, rain and 14 in Lethbridge. 17 with showers for Vancouver and Victoria, 18 in Kamloops. 13 in Prince George, rain and 15 for Smithers. 8 in Old Crow, 9 with rain in Whitehorse. 12 in Yellowknife, 10 with rain in Norman Wells. 5 in Sax Harbor, 7 in Pawlatuck. 8 with rain in Chesterfield, 9 and showers in Arviette. Plus 2 with snow in Resolute, 4 in Joe Haven. And before we go tonight, it was a momentous occasion for APTN today. After celebrating our 25th anniversary and the launch of our new APTN Languages channel, today it was closing the market at the Toronto Stock Exchange. TMX Group celebrated APTN's 25th year of history of telling Indigenous Métis, First Nation Métis and Inuit stories. APTN CEO Monica Ely was joined by others to help close the market. Ely says APTN has come a long way since we first launched back on September 1st, 1999.
First of all, launching a network, that's a big accomplishment for Indigenous stories, Indigenous languages, doing all types of programming from documentary to drama, children and youth, and our news team, having our own Indigenous news unit.
Cool stuff. Well, that's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday. For much more, visit our website, aptnnews.ca, and be sure to join Savannah Kelly here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for your first look at the day's news. I'm Dennis Ward, Marcy McGuitch. Thanks for being with us. Stick around for an encore presentation of Face to Face with guest Carrie Swanson, the Chief Executive Officer of the Indigenous Screen Office. Have a great night.